if I suspected that the needle was no good, I would just replace it with a brand new one out of the packet. Yeah, they're just saying here this end of the screwdriver here is for undoing the needle clamp screw, and there's a little note there to say do not apply strong force. Installing a needle, sewing with twin needle, replacing the presser foot, sewing basics, selecting stitches, starting to sew, goes through a little bit of tensioning here, overcasting, blind hemming, buttonhole sewing, sewing on buttons, fairly standard sort of fare, bar tacking, a little bit of maintenance here, cleaning, upper thread, tangling, goes through tangling, how to undo a jam here, cleaning, a list of troubleshooting symptoms here, and little index at the back there, error codes, not a bad little manual really, presser foot here, just a standard 3.5mm plug there, power cable there, just a standard what we call a figure 8 type power cable there. New Zealand and Australia, I think Australia have the same plugs as us. Cover here, covers the machine nicely there. Let's plug it in and see how it goes. So this end here into the side of the machine there, this end into the wall socket, foot controller, plugs in, stand here, and turn the machine on. So our default startup here, we've got stitch 0 selected, and it's recommending foot J, 2.5mm stitch length with no width. The main subject of today's video, apart from giving you a quick rundown unboxing of this new Extra Tough machine, is to just see how it goes on the likes of this jeans material here. Now this is probably not the heaviest denim that you could find, but it's pretty heavy. This particular lump here, that's 12 layers of denim there. You've got a flat seam here, that's 4 layers, and then it's turned in, so it's turned over once and then turned over twice for the hem there. And you can see here that this stitching is, this is obviously done on an industrial machine that's specifically designed for the job. It's pretty heavy going. It's quite a thick lump of denim there. What I want to do is I want to try and replicate that as closely as possible by running through some 35 weight polyester, 100% polyester thread. This is the sort of the gold jeans type coloured thread that you find. So they're using on the back here probably a thread that's not quite as heavy. It's pretty heavy though. I might have to use a lighter weight thread on the bobbin. I'm just not too sure. I'm going to really put it through its paces here. So let's see how this turns out. But let's start by winding a bobbin here. Run with that there. Threading the bobbin there. I'm going to be using these Smets jeans needles. These are a size 110 metric or Imperial 18. I'll make sure that's reasonably tight because you don't want the needle coming out. That's there. I'll be running with the standard J foot there, and I'm also going to be using this handy little attachment. It's actually from a Husqvarna, an old Husqvarna sewing machine, and it's quite handy for handling some of these lumps and bumps, and I'll show you how, and that would be easy enough to replicate. It's just a fork type system there. That's a thicker piece there, so that is about 3.3 mil, and the thinner part, this one, is 2.12. So two different thicknesses there. So let's thread her up here. Now I don't really expect the needle threader to handle this weight thread. It might. Let's just try it. Oh yeah, yep. Needle threader works well. Let's start on this here. Now I'll start on the thin area. This is our really thick lump here. I'll start on the thin area. We'll come around here. There's a thinner lump there. That's 9 layers of denim there. Around here is 3 layers. And then here, this big lump, that's 12 layers beefy denim. I'll take the flatbed attachment off and we'll make use of the free arm facility here. So let's just try and go around this seam here. I want to have the needle in the centre of its throw. So you can see 0, 0 is the left hand side and 0, 1 is the middle in the centre there. So I want to select one there, and I think a stitch length pretty high. So I've gone the maximum. I'm taking a guess at about 8 for the tension. And let's see how we go here. Let's do a wee back tack here. Just on the slow speed there, just for a start. Let's speed her up a little bit. Seems to be handling that okay. It's 3 layers. Yeah, stitch length's probably a little bit too long. It's handling that nicely though. I'm dropping the stitch length down to 4. And we're coming up to 9 layers. Yeah, that went over there quite nicely. You can see there the stitch length stitch density changed there. That's when basically the machine was coming along here on the flat, and then the machine basically had to climb a hill to get up onto this 9 layers. That caused the stitch length there to shorten slightly, but it came off the back okay. Quite often on the back here of the lump, that's a sort of a sharp drop off there, and that can leave some slackness in this fabric here, and quite often a machine will slip stitch or skip stitches there, but that's handled it well. The big test is going to be coming up here. Here we go with 12 layers coming up. So I'm going to provide some assistance by pulling on the back slightly. I don't want to pull too hard, otherwise it'll cause the needle to deflect or flex and possibly break. So I'm just going to slowly come through here. I'll go down to the slowest speed. Now I'm providing a little bit of extra force there, not much. Well, that seemed to go through that denim quite nicely there. Whoa, Molly, watch your tail. Just do a back stitch here. Molly, that's not helpful. Stitch length looks pretty good actually. I think that's about right. We're set to 4. So here we have 12 layers of denim, and absolutely no problem whatsoever. It just ate that up really. You can see again stitch density change, or so that's actually looks more like a slip stitch there, where this material here on the back end, as the presser foot is coming over this lump, the presser foot's being held up off this fabric here by this lump, and that causes this fabric to what's called flag, and that means that it's moving up and down. So when the needle comes down through and penetrates the fabric, and then does its small needle bar rise to form a loop at the back of the needle, a loop of thread that the hook comes through and picks up. Well, what happens is instead of the thread looping, the fabric actually moves up with the needle and causes the loop to either malform or not form at all. And when the hook comes around to pick it up off the needle, pick the loop up, there's no loop there, or it's malformed and it causes a slip stitch. So more than likely that's what that is. You can get around this by using this little tool. And what you do there is, when you're coming off the seam, is you apply this little tool here so that as the foot is coming off this lump here, the needle goes down this little slot here, and the presser foot straddles this plastic piece here, and therefore that holds this fabric tight down in there and stops that fagging motion. What I'll do is I'll demonstrate that. I'll try and make it slip stitch again, and I'm just going to fold this over 3 times like this. Okay, this is definitely not going to be the prettiest hem you've seen, but I'm just sort of winging it here. I'm not pinning anything, I'm just turning it under to make 3 layers of fabric for this thing to go through. It's 3 layers long here, and we up to the 9 layer. Now, you saw before that we had this stitch density change here, and that's because the machine had to climb up this little hill here. So we're looking at it from another angle here. Got this 180 degrees turned. But if we use this, what you can do, come up closer, and with the needle down, lift the presser foot, and then you slide this in from behind here. I might need the thicker, yeah, I'll go for the thicker side, that's the 3mm. And then let your presser foot back down, and that just holds the presser foot up. Well, it gives it a little bit of a ramp there to sit on while it, so that it doesn't have to go up that steep sort of incline. See how we go there. I mean, it's absolutely no worries whatsoever as far as punching the needle through the denim. Then this just comes out as it comes off the press foot there. Okay, back onto 3 layers. And it sounds okay, you know, just considering what it's doing. Okay, now this is the challenging part here. This is a steep lump coming up here, very steep here. I'll just drop the speed down. I'll come up to the lump as close as I can. So at that point there, the lump is actually pushing on the front. Let's get you a slightly different angle there. You can see here that the lump is actually pushing on the front of the foot. So that's going to cause the machine to resist feeding. So that's when it's a good time to lift the foot. And if you've got one of these tools, or if you make something like it, slip that in behind there. And that again just provides a little ramp there. I'm going to assist the feeding a little bit. Yep, might have struggled a little bit there. And then what you can do is, now because you've got this lump here, you'll see the presser foot is being held up by the lump. And if I just get my tweezers there, I'll just try and show you what goes on here. Is you've got this sort of slack. This piece of material here is not being held down by the foot. It's just sort of floating around. And that's what causes that slip stitching coming off the other end, like we saw back here, this slip stitching here. We're coming off in a different direction this time, but it's still got the same effect. So what we can do is we can put this little tool in the front here, and then you have to be careful because you need to stop before the needle gets to this here, so you need to keep an eye on it. So you can just run off onto the tool. That's probably far enough. I'll just bring the tool back a little bit more. I just want to get one more stitch in. And then if you let the tool go, you'll see that the press foot now drops down and is holding the fabric firm here now. Okay, and then so we shouldn't get any slip stitching there. Let's see what we've got. Well, that actually made it worse, I think. It didn't like that at all. Big slip stitch there, another one. Yeah, totally missed stitching there. Maybe it's a matter of getting the tool in there a little bit further. I'm not quite sure, but that's definitely slip stitching coming off the back here. Looks quite good coming up to the seam. I mean, we got a little bit of stitch density change here, just where the stitches started to close up a little bit. We got on top of there, that's all good, and then just coming off the back there is not flashed. Let's see if we can improve that. I'll try it without the tool, but what I'm going to have to do is I'm going to have to hold, just sort of help it across. So when you're doing this, you don't want to be pulling too hard at the back here to cause the fabric to slip through the machine over the feed dogs. You just want to be assisting it enough to help the feed dogs, really. There is a danger if you pull too hard on the back here that you could flex the needle and break the needle. So we're coming up to this lump again here. Let's have another go. I mean, it's quite a bit to expect of a domestic machine. Try and help that through. Just going to go down onto the low speed. Yep, all good. It's okay. There may not be slip stitching. Yeah, it looks like it. It's either slip stitching or it's just the fact that this lump here is coming out the back of the foot as it's sliding the fabric a little bit, and it's making the stitches appear longer. Well, it's making the stitches longer. Either that or it's slip stitching. I'm not quite sure exactly if it's slip stitching or not, but it looks like it. I'll try with the little tool again. Does a small hesitation as it's punching the needle through the fabric there, and then I think the electronics detect that and provide more power to the motor. Maybe if I push down on the actual tool, just one step at a time there. Quite long stitches. So we're looking at this one here in the middle here, looking good there. Again, yeah, there might be some slip stitching going on. I don't know actually whether I'm going to have a close look. It's a bit hard from behind the camera, but I'm going to have a close look here to see whether, I mean, it could just be the fact that that fabric is kind of being it's kind of got a little bit of a fold here, so when the needle steps off it looks like it's a long stitch, because when it's under the foot there it's probably that sort of scenario there. I'll get you a side on to try and explain what I'm thinking here. So I'm wondering if the fabric is kind of sort of closing up a little bit here, you know, maybe just folding up just a little bit. I'm exaggerating this, but when the needle steps down off there, you know, if you look at it from the needle's point of view, top down, it probably is the right stitch length, but when the fabric is laid flat like that, it stretches that stitch out. So I'm thinking that more than likely this here that looks like slip stitching is quite possibly a distortion of the fabric. I'm not sure, that one might be a slip stitch, but I think this one here is probably not a slip stitch. It's either slippage or some sort of distortion of the fabric. Also, I've just noticed there that too, you know, this top tension might be a little bit too tight, so I've reduced the top tension down to 6 here. Let's see how that goes. If the top tension's too loose, you'll see loops underneath. So let's see how this goes here. Just going to go on a slower speed there. I think that was a slip stitch, I could tell by the way the thread looped. That's the outside seam there. Yeah, I'm pretty sure that was a slip stitch, that one there. But that's looking better. I think, you know, maybe this tension might be too tight here and it's pulling across. That looks a little bit better. One slip stitch there. Yeah, you know, I don't think that's too big a deal, considering this is just a domestic machine. It's doing really well. And if we have a look on the bottom, there's no real major loops coming through. So even on tension 6, that's doing a really good job. And that's with, you know, quite a heavy thread. That's a size 110 needle. Stitch length is closing up a little bit here, but I could probably help that through, make that a little bit better. So it's probably one of those things that, you know, you get right with a little bit of trial and error. But I would say that's pretty close. I'll probably increase the stitch length maybe by a half. The other thing that I've known people to do is to actually, you know, compress this down by giving this lump a good hit with a hammer. Can make the seam a little bit thinner. I don't know if I'd recommend that, but it's what I've heard people do. Let's have another wee go here. Slip stitch there. Yeah, I helped it through a little bit there. So, you know, the stitch length's not so bad here, but definitely does one little slip off the back there. And I think, you know, possibly if you time that right, you could slip the little tool in just to help hold that firmly there. You know, when they say this machine's good for jeans, I would certainly believe them, because just looking at that, it really handles this, you know, probably the best that I've seen a modern domestic machine do in a long time. You know, I'm really impressed with the way that this machine's handled. I'm going to do some comparisons with some other machines, you know, the likes of the Singer Heavy Duty, and some of my older machines, the likes of the Boninas and the Husqvarnas and the Elnas and things like that. So the sort of more retro heavy duty machines, if you like. The other thing I've seen in the literature is that it's got a fixed needle bar mechanism, and I'm not quite sure exactly what that means. So keep an eye out for more videos on this machine, where I'll go through, maybe do a basics video, just basic usage, and also maybe a tear down, and we'll have a look inside here and see what this fixed needle bar mechanism is all about. And just to have a wee look inside, you know, down in the hook area here, to see if there's any differences, and what, you know, we might be able to glean as to why, you know, this machine's doing such a good job at, you know, punching through all this denim here. yeah, so keep an eye out for more videos, and I thank you very much for watching.